Okay, so let's continue to talk about Roger Jackson. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Mr. and Lady, I am your host, Germ, and this episode today is just going to be a follow up on the Roger Jackson episode that I just recently released. If you haven't listened to that one, I'm probably going to link that one in the description of this one as well. That way you can listen to it because this one pretty much is a follow up to it. For those who are unaware, is the story of Roger Jackson, but we're going to be mainly focusing on his father for this one. But for those who don't know anything about it, he was a son of a famous UFC fighter, Rampage, and he basically was live streaming on August 23rd. He decided to go to a indie wrestling show, and he got into an incident with one of the wrestlers, with one of the amateur wrestlers, and he decided after the incident, after he had shook hands with the man, to get revenge on him by basically brutally assaulting him in the ring during it was semi-planned. He was the guy probably anticipated that he was going to get a receipt by slamming him or doing some type of work, a run-in, but he didn't expect him to do what he did, which included over 20 brutal punches to the head. Pretty much, it started with him picking him up and just slamming him to the mat, which already had knocked him out. It was brutal, but I wanted to continue to talk about this one because when it came to his father, Rampage, all I really did was read the reaction tweet that he posted. I didn't really go in too much on him. I pretty much said that that's all you can expect from a guy to say about his father, but I feel like I was going very, very light on him, all things considered, considering what I've seen recently and just actual compilations of the way that he interacted with his son. And that brings me to the topic of today's episode, and that is the importance of speaking love and speaking life into your child. And I, as somebody who personally, I never really had to deal with what Raja had to deal with growing up. And I want to make this clear. I am not going to try to defend Raja in this. He is a 25-year-old man. One thing I've seen people do that have been trying to defend him is they try to refer to him as a kid. I saw somebody say, "Oh, he just needs to get around some other good kids," and that can. And it's just like you got to remember, this motherfucker is 25. Emotionally, yes, he may be still a child, but mentally, physically, he is a grown ass man, and we cannot pacify him. That sets a dangerous precedent. That's not good for him. That's almost as bad as trying to paint him out as this irredeemable demon. And I feel like I may have, in a sense, done that. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm defending the man when I really was able to look at some of the things and look at more background on Rampage himself. You start to see an almost pattern of thinking and a way of parenting that he alluded to in the way and just the things he would say publicly and the things that you're able to see on their live streams together, that his son was a ticking time bomb. When you are able to look back, and this is just a very publicly identifiable quote. He apparently had an ex-wife who was Asian, and they had kids together. And Raja is a son he had illegitimately. So that's already a bit of a weird dynamic. But there's already a quote of him being has stated, "I set aside college tuition money for my half Asian kids, but for my black son, I just have bail money." He said, "I know he's not going to go to college." And I just, things can just sound cute or just humorous or, oh, that's just the guy Rampage. He's playing a character as this sort of person. But I feel like more and more as I grow older, I've sort of subscribed to the mindset that when someone is telling you who they are, you need to listen. Because this is somebody who has already had multiple problems with the law, was just controlling his own temper. He's notorious for that. The motherfucker's nickname was Rampage. And then you see him, and I want to give a grain of salt that all these IRL stream compilations that I've seen of Raja as a grown man. This is a guy who, instead of speaking life into his son, is calling him gay at every opportunity he can. This is a guy who is telling him, "Oh, I hate you." This is a guy, and again, maybe this is a joke to that nigga. Maybe he really does love his son, and I'm not going to say that he doesn't. He might have had a fucked up childhood, and I don't want to try to, completely demify this man. But, and I'm gonna get into this later, you have such a responsibility to your child, especially when you are the father of a black man, to set him up in a position to where he won't have to have such an aggressive chip on his shoulder, to feel like he needs to lash out, to feel like he needs to prove something in the worst fucking way. Because when you have a father who is, and this is something that happened on the day of this incident, on August 23rd. His son, after he had, I think this must have been after he had already like patched up the incident. He called him and said, "Yo, I've heard from my stream, from the chat. Another aspect of this that's really fucked up in this whole like avenue of this whole shit that must have been going through this nigga's head, Raja. You have your father who is calling you saying, yo, I heard you were doing some gay shit, hugging all these wrestlers in tights and shit. Pretty much trying to emasculate him live on his stream, trying to go out of his way to just make him sound like a bitch. And then you have a whole chat that's just chatting, that's just typing to this man, trying to tell him how he's a bitch, how he shouldn't take that, or he should do this and how he should do that. People who are just trying to see how much people who are really just trying to see what type of fucked up thing they can get a human being to do. And again, he's 25. He's a grown ass man. You should be able to shrug that off. You should be able to understand that that's just manipulation. Understand that you have to stand on your own shit and not fall for that. But it's really, really crazy to think of how much of that must have been coming from his own father. How much, when you, again, if you watch the clip of him, he's sitting there with the blood on his shirt, talking about how ain't nobody's going to mess with him anymore. No one's going to call him a bitch. No one's going to do this. No one's going to do that. And he specifically calls out his father. That is a lot of trauma. That's a lot of built up shit that it just had to get taken out on Psycho Stu, who is still not out of the hospital. He's still not awake and very fully stable from what I've read. Like, this is how bad he did this, man. And I just gotta think to myself, Rampage has to understand that should have been him. That's a lot of anger towards you. That's because you spent so much time in publicly. That's the crazy part. It's not even just like he felt he could do this shit publicly. He felt like this was funny enough to just do this in front of an audience. Emasculating him on a in front of the entire internet. And that's the entire world, man. And it's really fucking sad to see it from both sides. Aja needs jail. He gotta sit the fuck down. But honestly, Rampage he needs to be publicly ridiculed and lambasted. Because my nigga, you put a battery in your son's back. You put a battery in his back in the worst way possible. And it honestly irks me a lot just as a black man, because why would you do that? Because I hate identity politics, but you've really given so much. I've seen so much racist shit that is coming from the worst types of people imaginable. And again, that's not some shit that I really even have to take personally, but I hate to see it being given ammo, because Rampage did exactly what like you just didn't raise a man. You raised an emotional ass little boy who just happened to have fucking killer hands. And I still don't think he gets it. He's still out there getting mad at people who are trying to bring it up. He's still trying to just act like, oh no, man, I'm dealing with it. Like, no. He's still trying to get away from. He himself needs a lot of fucking therapy, and he really just needs to. I don't know. I don't want to say anything he should be held legally responsible for shit, because again, that was not him who did that. But how do you not think about the things that you have done to your son? How do you not think about what you have put your son in the position to be, and not have to, and not just really feel a lot of guilt and shame? I mean, niggas still out streaming. I don't understand how you're doing that, nigga. Fight the case. Get from in front of the camera. There's nothing you need to be doing. You are already a multimillionaire, nigga. Unless that's fake, you need to be handling this court shit, because it's absolutely asinine. And the other thing that's crazy about it, the son was just fighting so much to just have his own, to just be seen as independent of his own father, of not being your shadow. There's so many different avenues and angles of this that all just lead back to this man just not doing his fucking job. And honestly, it's the prime example of sometimes no father is better than a bad. He chose to say horrible things to his son. He chose to treat him horrible ways. He chose to abuse him verbally and even physically sometimes on fucking stream in front of people. So you know what? I gotta hold no sympathy for you. You've put me in a position, Rampage, where I'm feeling bad for your son, who is a horrible monster for fucking beating the nigga halfway to death. And I'm over on here just trying to find a way that we can hold you responsible more than anybody. I hope you do pay for your son's legal. And I hope you go broke doing it. Because you deserve that. Because you just ain't shit. And that's just the fucked up part about it. And it's just sad to see that you're not the one that has to pay for it. This random indie wrestler who, and again, I see some people who still try to harp on the fact that it was a can and all this other dumb shit. Nothing is going to excuse shaking a man's hand and then doing what Raja did. So it's fucked up. It's fucked up that Rampage is not the one that is really having to face the brunt of this shit. But that is all I have for y'all today. This has been Kinetic Aesthetic. I am your host, German. Y'all have yourselves a good one.